Show. I am your host, Christene Marie. I love my times in the mornings because this time, which I call vertical alignment, it gives me effectively a container of time, space to really lean into how am I doing in the morning. It gives me space where I actually can really cultivate my inner life and really be taught from within. I actually was in the shower earlier today just thinking about this and how it's so meaningful that time in the morning because for the most part, we're all just listening to the external world and everyone else is telling us how to think, who to be, how to show up. And this is it's sacred and I don't say that word lightly. It is truly a sacred space where leaning into myself for kind of the one and only time throughout the day to be taught from within. Intuition, the Latin word of intuition is intuere, and it means to be taught from within. And so, as I've been looking at 2026 and the things that I want to change and grow in my life, strengthen, change really is derived from discipline. And even now, I actually picked up the book From Good to Great again. I read it a while ago. It's by Jim Collins, but it's just been on my mind over the last couple of months. And so I downloaded it again on Audible. Even just I was doing a lunch and learn with my dad. Well, it was a more like coffee and breakfast and learning. My family has a 100-year-old painting business, and so we were taking breakfast and coffee to a restoration company close by, and I saw Good to Great a couple different times in the office, and I was like, "All right, that's my sign. I gotta get that book." So I downloaded it, and I was in the gym the other day, just starting to listen to it again, and he says the three tenets of the book are the disciplined mind, the disciplined person, and disciplined actions. And so discipline really is at the hallmark of my focus for this year. And it's interesting because the thought of discipline, the thought of effectively what it yields. When I first started out this year, I had my word being predictability for the purpose of peace and partnerships and positioning, positioning knowing in a really consistent manner so that I'm showing up in the same way every day. But then when I thought deeper about predictability, well, the only way I can really be predictable and live predictable is through discipline. And honestly, the thought of living that way felt boring. It felt like, oh my gosh, I'm putting this structure in my life that actually is confining me from freedom. And so I was really leaning into this because whenever I feel discomfort around a topic or a subject, anytime I feel discomfort in my body, that's my signal. It's time to lean in and listen. So the three steps I take whenever I feel discomfort in my body, it's kind of what I use to define the state of being is to slow down, lean in, and just be curious and ask why. Like, why am I feeling this way? What's going on for me? And in that process of being around this subject, and just like being is effectively, it's in one sense it's obvious. It's like, well, you're not doing, you're being, but we sometimes actually have to, how do I want to say this? When I was first introduced the concept of being by my therapist, I was like, what does that even mean? Like that just felt so foreign to me. And I was like, what are three steps of what are 3 to 5 ways I can be? And he was like, you're missing the point. You're trying to do to be. And I think that there are practical steps to take to cultivate a state of being, to actually learn how to get connected with ourselves. The other day, I was talking about how to gain greater access to ourselves because for so long I lived with no access to myself. And so I've had to learn, okay, well, how do I be with myself and how do I be in alignment and how do I be aware of what's going on inside of me? And so even though I think in one sense intuitively it's like, oh, being is just a state, it's a state of being, and it's like, well, yes, and how do you do that? So in one sense it sounds contradictory, but for me I'm very much so about taking a principle and bringing it down and grounding it in practice. And so the practice of being for me looks like slowing down, leaning into whatever is happening in the moment and just being so present and exploring what is coming up for me, what's arising for me, or even just maybe nothing's wrong and maybe it's just I'm going to lean into this moment and experience the heightened uh heightened present moment. And so when specifically I experience a feeling of discomfort, that for me is my sign that it's time to be. It's time to kind of stop doing and come into this moment and figure out, why do I feel discomfort? And we were all chatting about this last night a little bit here in the chat, and I'll jump over to the chat here in a few minutes. Um, but we were chatting about this last night around how, there was a sense of discomfort very strongly that I felt at the thought of slowing down and not traveling and being disciplined. And I realized, even just having a conversation with my friend yesterday, I realized that a real value of mine is freedom, but I've never experienced freedom in, like, outside of the context of travel and having a really flexible schedule. So I'm like, okay, well, then how do I allow for discipline to work in concert with freedom? How do I actually ensure that discipline is a propelling force for freedom? 𝐤𝐤𝐸𝐿𝐼𝐶, who's I think he was Navy SEAL, I think. He was in the military and just like this powerhouse of a guy. He has this infamous quote uh, saying, "Discipline equals freedom." And so I've been having these thoughts around freedom and discipline over the last couple of weeks. And so this morning, I was in my time of vertical alignment. It was around 5:15, 5:30 this morning, and I just had this moment of realization around, like, kind of a visual of discipline. And I realized that discipline is effectively the frame. It's like the structure, and then within the confines of discipline, life happens. There's freedom within the bounds of discipline. And it's like when you go to inside a house, like, there's so many beautiful rooms, and there's so much life there. There's parties, there's conversations, there's in-depth meetings, there's strategy, there's anything can happen within a house. But discipline is effectively the structure of the building. And then within that structure, man, it is like any endless possibilities. Life can blow up and happen in the most beautiful ways. And one of my favorite biblical texts ever since I was a kid was this verse from Psalm 16:11, which says, "The boundary lines have fallen for me in beautiful places. Indeed, I have a beautiful inheritance." And so I'm thinking about discipline kind of like that. Discipline is a boundary line. And inside that boundary line, there is so much freedom to do whatever I so choose. But without those boundary lines, it's going to be so, so hard to move towards an end goal that is effectively creating a life that I really, really want. So think of it, a bowling alley. Who we want to be and what we feel called to do is effectively the bowling pins. And then our values and discipline are, it's almost like the lane. Discipline is the lane in and of itself, and then our values serve as almost like bumper guardrails so that our ball doesn't go rolling into the gutters. But the very alleyway of the bowling alley in and of itself is discipline. Otherwise, we don't know where to throw the ball. We don't know where our bowling pins are. And so it was a really helpful reframe for me, that it's like, discipline is simply the structure. And then everything that happens within it is the process of change, and the process of pursuing our dreams and pursuing our goals, becoming the person that we want to become, and fulfilling on why we're here in the first place. And so effectively, discipline allows for, it's the alleyway, it's the pathway, it's the vehicle in which we exist, that the process takes place. And inside the process itself is where real change in real life happens. There's another concept around process. And process it's frustrating for all of us who have big dreams, and it's frustrating for a lot of us who are entrepreneurial. We're constantly trying to get to the destination and trying to get to the achievement and procurement of that goal, rather than recognizing and respecting and even having, like, almost like this honor for the process. In the process is the cultivation. In the process, we change. In the process, we learn. In the process, we ideate. And so moving from having this fixation on the end goal of where I'm going, and instead being able to really honor the process, man, does that allow us to live in the gain. We were talking about The Gain and the Gap the other day by Dan Sullivan. And, being able to live in the gain means that we're living right here, right now in the process. We're looking back from where we came and it's like, look at how far. This is so exciting. And yes, I'm aware of where I'm going and I've got my path charted for me, but I'm not so fixated on the end goal that I'm not living here in the present moment and living fully alive and being changed as a result of presence. And in the ability to be alive right here, right now, one of my greatest indicators of whether I'm present or not is, do I actually remember what happened? Am I actually really, truly able to retain the moments that I'm experiencing right here, right now? Or am I living 60 seconds, 60 minutes, 60 days from now? Thinking so much on that. In the last couple of days, I felt like I've been kind of in a marathon sprint. And I felt so strongly like I'm just supposed to take it one day at a time. Each day has enough problems of its own. And as I've been focusing on just not just making it through today, but living it fully and well, there's been so much meaning and so much that has actually come about. Whereas if I was living fixated on 60 days from now, I probably would have actually missed like real true opportunities. And so there's this fine line of living so much in the present and being fully here and now and keeping our eye on the ball and knowing where we're going, why we're going there, how to get there. But that's where discipline comes in. It's like with the combination and the integration of discipline and presence, we can be fully in the now and be moving in the right direction. So, with that, I'm going to jump over to the chat here and say, hello, my friends. I'm so glad you're here. Wells 1940. I just jumped into a random. I'm midway through the chat, but Wells 1490 something. Good to see you. Garden. Good to see you. Jerome. Freedom is a state of mind. I love that. I'm so glad you said that. Isn't that so true? I can be anywhere, any place, and well, I won't go down that rabbit hole. My gosh. I just love that you said that. Yes, freedom is a state of mind. Lola Los, good to see you. Matthew, the subject of this talk is discipline, as we've been talking about. Kelly, good to see you. Summertime. I love your name here. Summertime fun, live, love, laugh. That's like the best title. Miles, thanks for joining. The Power of Now. I'm sorry if I'm not saying this right, Jeronin. I need to pick that book back up because I was listening to it on Audible, and that book, for everyone listening, The Power of Now, such an incredible book. That book was so fundamentally different from how I grew up thinking, and I think I've only read half of it, so I need to finish it. But it's so good. Leo, good to see you. I don't know anyone, but good luck. Pushit, good to see you. Dab. Just going through here. I'm gonna just scroll down a little bit. Tommy Gunn. Just giving you guys a shout out because I'm looking for some questions or something like that. Or comments. Christopher Adams. Oh, so good to see you. Discipline is really a structured routine of the smallest things we do each day to cultivate a love for ourselves. The undisciplined mind is a byproduct of calamity and chaos. Dang. That is so beautifully stated. The undisciplined mind is a byproduct of calamity and chaos. I think I'm done. Bye. That is so good. Man, that's beautifully stated, Christopher. I would love to know, Christopher, I'm still getting through the chat, but I'd love to know what are some of those small habits, the structured routine that you have in place that's been meaningful to you? Because I know, like, I've got my habits, but frankly, I really want to continue to solidify and strengthen them. So I'd love to hear from you. Francisco, thank you. I'm so glad you're here. Hard to please guy. Hello, Davidson. Curie Potbong, good to see you. Jimmy Armstrong. Pittsburgh, Mississippi. Good to see you. Oh, speaking of, y'all, some of you guys were asking yesterday, I think it was either yesterday or the day before, about where I live, and I do live events. I dinners and then virtual events where we actually like move through worksheets and like really dig deep. So if you guys want to ever attend any of those, I just posted a link in the chat. If you guys want to fill that out, um, I'd love to just like let you know. And I've also been having folks ask me like, what time am I going live? I'm starting probably next week. My goal is to go consistently live at the same time every day. So I haven't been doing that every day, but but I plan to. So yes, please, 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 please fill that out. I would really, really love to do something where you guys all just know what's happening. Okay, going back up. Tommy Gunn, good to see you. Raven, uh, Salam. Yes, I am real. Just M. Lee, GH. I'm in vertical alignment right now. I love that. Andy Cap, Jason. I'm just going through here. Saying hello. Daniel Craig, Jason Winkler. Oh, I love your name, Winkler. If that's really your last name, I love it. Tamala King, Pink, I think. Payne, Gutstack. Just scrolling down. Oh, that was a very unkind message. Oh my gosh. Simone. All right. I'm just scrolling down to get back to towards the bottom. Paul Brown, good to see you. Hard to please. Jake Road to nowhere. Where's the sound gone? No, I just was taking a break and reading through some of these chats. I really, if you guys are up for it, I would love if you guys have a topic that you guys want to talk about. Let's chat. Some of my favorite conversations here in the chat is when we're actually really engaging and you guys are sharing your thoughts and I get to learn from you. Hard to please. Do you know Tony Robbins? I've never been to a Tony Robbins event. I actually would really, really love to. I've heard how impactful he is. And this is actually a question. I'm wondering, I think he sells courses and then obviously does his big, massive live events. And I'm curious from y'all's perspective, like, what would you ever do a course? Have you done a course by him? He's made such a difference in so many people's lives, and it's so worthy of honor, But I haven't read anything by him. Paul Brown, I'm doing so good. I'm doing well, and I'm not feeling great. I don't know what's happening. This morning I got on to do a Course in Miracles, and someone was like, "Why do you sound croaky?" And I was like, "I don't know." And so I think that now I know why. I'm probably getting something. So I'm doing good, and I'm a little like just like where you just have that headache right there. Steve Holmes, habits are a normal thing. It's obviously addictive habits that can be harmful. What a good point. Honestly, it's really funny. I think that it's like we can go to one extreme or another, and even the quote unquote good habits that we get addicted to can be really damaging. It's like working out too much or being so careful with what you eat that you're not eating. Both are so harmful. Hard to please. I don't really know what you mean by that. Offer a buffet with your talks. I don't know what that means. But maybe if I don't know. Wally Winker, hello. Good to see you. Robert. Oh, are you in Scotland? I went to Scotland. My sisters and I drove through it. Y'all go to Scotland. If you guys ever want to have a conversation in the form that I dropped, I'll go ahead and drop it again. In this form, I actually have conversations or like topics that I'd love to hear from you guys. Like I was thinking about doing a conversation around, so much of this show, the reason why we're here is to talk about becoming a really holistic, integrated person in terms of all of our intelligences and turning all of our intelligences online, not just pursuing our IQ, but also emotional intelligence and physical intelligence, actually learning how to listen to the body. And I've got so much to learn on the physical intelligence piece. And I'd love to, would that be conversation around what are just like healthy habits that we're doing and that we can all kind of share about and learn from each other. So tell me if that would be interesting to you. So if you fill that out, oh, Steve, oh my gosh, you said, I love that you actually gave some topics here. Okay. The UK Savior, good to see you. Luca. All right. So Wally Winker, how is your theoretical physics chatter? You know what? Clearly not good because I don't really think I know what you mean. Oops. Um, oh, the UK Savior, tell us about your hardest breakup and how you got through it. Oh, well, I've only ever dated 2 people. The first one, I started dating him when I was 18, and then I married him at 20. We were married for 8.5 years, and, uh, a year into our marriage, my sister's husband was killed, and he said we should have my sister and her 3-week-old baby girl live with us. So, first off, he will always be a hero in some ways for that. I think that's probably one of the most generous and kind things anyone can ever do. And I also, neither one of us knew how to be emotionally healthy. All we knew was to constantly make our entire life around everybody else and centered on everybody else. And so we both, I think, were really neglecting ourselves along the way. And it was almost like ships in the night. Like I tried to be who he wanted me to be. And I know he obviously was giving so much for my sister and her baby. And they lived with us for 2.5 years, or around 2 years. And I think that with how we were struggling and how we just, again, grew up with no tools for emotional intelligence. This is why I care about it so much, because I've experienced, like, when he left, that was just devastating, and we were the first people we never had been with anybody else. So I think that there was just a lot of reasons why, he left. And it just broke me. It broke me, but I had to decide to let it break me open. When my brother-in-law was killed, it broke me, but I didn't let myself really break open. I wanted to be strong for my sister, and I felt like I didn't deserve, not that I didn't deserve, it felt improper almost to grieve to the extent that I felt, just so devastated because it wasn't my loss. And also, I grew up in a very Christian conservative home. So it was, again, that narrative of like, it's always about other people. It's always for them. And the mantra in our church was God first, others second, you third. And so then when it comes to you, you're done. You've got nothing left for you because you've already given it all away. And so when he left, I really, for the first time in my life, I actually went inward. Like I actually did the work to look in the mirror and say, okay, if it was 5%, 50%, whatever part I contributed to this marriage failing, I need to take complete and full ownership of it. And the biggest thing I realized was that I had been existing as a non-person in the marriage. I wasn't showing up aware of what I wanted, what I needed. I didn't know. Like I really genuinely didn't know who I was or what I wanted. And so I think, the way that I dealt with it, I have a book coming out about this. I went inward, I actually really kind of closed myself off from a lot of other people and closed myself off from social media and just like even my own family. And I was like, I need to go find me. Like, I need to go. And it's not even finding. What I learned is that I had been there all the time, but I had built up layers upon layers upon layers and upon layers. And it was like I needed to get through the layers to access and return to me again. It's like when somebody asked Michelangelo, how did you sculpt David? He was like, I just removed who David was not. And then I found him. And so that's what I had to do when my husband left. It was like, okay, I got to go return to me. At first I thought it was like I need to go find me. I need to go kind of like make me, but it was like no, so much of it is remembering, so much of it is returning and honoring who that person is that I left behind all those years ago. And not just who I left behind, but who I silenced. Like I started out this show tonight talking about intuition. Intuition, the Latin root for that is intuere, which means to be taught from within. I had really silenced her voice for the majority of my marriage. And, I get into that in my book, but I think for the biggest takeaway of what I did to move through that was to go inward and to stop outsourcing my worth to other people and to look in the mirror, take full responsibility for who I am, take full responsibility for healing, and to also take full responsibility for determining whether I would view that I was enough, or would I constantly be looking for other people to affirm me, or would I be able to look at myself in the mirror and say that I was worthy because of who God says I am, not who everyone else says that I am. So that's thank you for asking that question. That was really meaningful. Um, Let me go down. Steve, I see your question. Let's talk about depression here. Um, I'm just looking here at the chat. Mm, um, Steve, you said later on, I guess if you didn't know yourself, then your husband must have felt the same. I'm sure. I'm sure. I actually, there was an interesting time where when he first started thinking about leaving, um, the grass is always greener on the other side. And when he first started thinking about leaving, I actually really got to know him. Like I asked him all these questions, and I effectively went through this process of knowing, hence the name of the show, The Knowing Show. I kind of went through the process of knowing him in a way that I then got to know me later on. And I know that was probably hard to be in a relationship with someone who doesn't know themselves. I don't think he knew himself either. It's like neither of us did. And so, um, yeah, I could say more, but frankly, it's so important to me that I really respect him and I don't throw him under the bus. So giving a 5 minute or 2 minute answer in response to that, I just, I want to be mindful of that. Um, in your comment, you said, um, oh, mm, I just saw the UK Savior. You said, "How was he killed? If you don't mind me asking, I'm Catholic too, and going through it with my wife." So my brother-in-law was killed by a drunk driver. That she was going the wrong way on the interstate. He was coming home from work. He was working night shifts with Exxon, and she was going the opposite direction, and it was head on and instant. And so, yeah, it was in 2014, October 5th, 2014. It's one of those moments, where it's like that happens to other people. It doesn't happen to, it's just like it was so distant. Like I had never had a cousin die or I had a grandparent die, but before I was born. And so that was really the first death, 26 years old, the most vibrant alive person I've ever met, killed instantly in such a senseless accident. And so, yeah, I had to really have it out with God and be like, what the fuck is happening? Um, so Mm. The, I just wanna go back to I think, Steve, you said, "Let's talk about depression." It's interesting, just connecting that question with your initial one, the UK Savior. I found that I had never experienced depression before because I had never let myself feel anything, like, truly feel anything, and so when I first started letting myself feel for the first time in my life and, like, sense emotions, man, I just felt so sad, like so, so, so sad. And it was really helpful. I did start therapy and that was really good. And my therapist said, like, effectively, I would be concerned if you didn't feel this way. Like it's circumstantial depression in some ways. And that's actually really, really validating. And I don't know if anyone else needs to hear that, but I needed to hear that. Like, oh, it's actually good and healthy that I'm grieving and that I'm feeling so sad and so depressed because it's honoring the love that I had for this man and the future that I worked so hard for and all the prayers that I prayed and all the tears, everything. It's actually good and honorable to ourselves to feel that way because that's part of the closing of the chapter. And I've had to, it's been 4 years since then. And you know, I think that that was really important that I let myself feel those things. So in terms of depression, I think that's actually something really interesting to consider between circumstantial depression um, versus something that's like, okay, I need support for this or medication or something like that. Um, okay, Heinous, um, Ionis, good to see you. Um, Alex, Billy, Ben, thanks for joining. You said that you're new here. Thanks for coming on here. Um, Kislar, feel it, then let it go. I love that. That is something letting go is something I've actually been really leaning into over the last couple months. And when I say leaning into, like I'm trying to like literally like practice that. David Hawkins wrote the book Letting Go, and he describes it the best out of anyone I've ever talked to because I always thought letting go was like stop caring. And that was I'm like, well, I don't want to stop caring. Actually, that's a very core part to who I am. I really, really love people and I really care a lot. And how do I also let go? And so that book, we talked about the power of now earlier. The book, the second book would be Letting Go by David Hawkins. I think every single person needs to read that book. I think we would live in a completely different world if we learned how to your point, feel it and then let go. Um, mm, J11L2. I'm looking at this comment. I'm not really sure. I don't know. It seems like there's a lot here, so I'm curious to see more of your mentions here. Hard to place guy. I find talking about depression is depressing, but maybe that's just me. You know, I think so. I think actually talking about things that are hard are sad. Um, I think sometimes it's really right to actually give space for people to feel sad. I think, well, from my experience in the Western culture, we don't have a great place and good system to talk about it. You know, we were talking about how discipline is effectively the frame in which it's like a framework, it's a structure, and then we can change and experience life within that structure. We don't have a structure for grief or a structure for mental health issues or a structure for depression or a structure for even entering into someone else's pain. And so I think because of the lack of structure or even like a discipline around it, it makes it so that it's awkward and it makes it so that we don't know how to come alongside each other and like sit in the ashes. But it's in the ashes that then catalyzes the growth and the change that then we rise. From the ashes, we rise. But it's so much easier to engage with someone after they've risen. So it would, that would actually be an interesting conversation to have if anyone's interested in it. We can maybe talk about this tomorrow night. But how do we come alongside and sit with someone? Like, what would be a framework for that? And I think in one sense, it's hard to create a framework because every single person is different. Every circumstance is different. I had people congratulating me on the divorce when I was devastated. And it's like, well, I'm glad you're happy you were divorced. And it's like, it felt like the floor was ripped out from under me and everything in my life was floating. So I wasn't very happy. But anyways, J11, there's a reason they're called psychologists. That's so funny. Art, Mister, good to see you. I'm just looking through here. Francis, how much to take? I was cold tonight and I'm also not feeling great. Um, all right, y'all, I am going to jump off. I think dinner's ready. So I'm going to go grab that out of the oven. And yeah, thanks for joining tonight. And fill out that form if you guys want to. I really love doing events in person and virtually. So if you guys want to join any of the conversations, the live workshops that we've done have been in the context of doing the work to really kind of know who we are, and they're literally exercises that I've done that have really helped me. And then also I've hosted retreats that are in-person events. So if you guys ever want to join any of those, just let me know. um, all right, y'all. Have a wonderful night. Thank you so much for joining. I will be live tomorrow morning at 8:30 a.m. to review A Course in Miracles. We've been going through that every single morning, and it's for my own sake. It's so encouraging, and frankly, it's my own habit that I really want to continue cultivating this year. So this is my accountability by doing this in the morning, and then I'm going live every evening. As of right now, it's at 8:30 p.m. I went live a little early this morning, so between 8 and 9 p.m. Eastern, I'm going live. So